Well, welcome, Augie. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today and to share some of the experiences that you've had and some of the wisdom and knowledge you've accumulated over the years.
Well, I'm really, really privileged to be here, and I really love your vocational calling towards education because I've told you, Pete, both of my parents were teachers. So
Yeah. And you've done some
I got it
teaching.
in my gene. I've done a fair amount of teaching myself as a result, yeah.
Right. Just a little background for our folks that are listening in. Augie has been a corporate executive and entrepreneur, started several businesses, and an author who's written the book, which is how I met Augie, The Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, which we'll talk a little bit about today. I highly recommend this book. His parents were teachers. He's done some classes at North Carolina, University of North Carolina State, Duke. And what was interesting to me also, a live-in student of Lewis Mobley, the founder and iconic leader himself of the IBM Executive Leadership School. And I know you have other teachers in your life, but this is really key. And I'll ask you, with all of that background, how did you get involved with the Trappist monks?
Well, first of all, my most important, I've always had a spiritual vocation from the time I was 18 or 19 years old. I call it a spiritual vocation, although I started out as an atheist. I wanted to get to the bottom of things. I wanted to know what life was all about. How do you know that you're living the right kind of life? How can I be guaranteed that my life is meaningful? So I got into Zen. I got into everything. And so, and matter of fact, for a business tutor, but because I'd heard he was a spiritual guy. So I was always, and I'd read a lot about the Trappist monks. And, but really what precipitated my move to go to a monastery down in South Carolina, Mepkin Abbey, was that I broke my ankle in a skydiving accident, which triggered a midlife crisis / dark night of the soul in my own life. And so I didn't go down there to academically observe these monks at work so I could come out with a book 12 years or 17 years later. I went down there because I was looking for help. And I found it, thank God.
Augie, one of the things that I found really interesting in your book is you talked about once you got to the Abbey, that you started to see that human life was about transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And that there was a yearning for transformation.
Right.
What kind of transformation are we talking about? And I know you went down, as you just said, for your own dark night of the soul, but what are we talking about there?
Well, I would say in retrospect, I speak also in the second chapter of my book about going when I was only 19 years old, going to a Rolling Stones concert, and Mick Jagger actually wearing my hat. I was in the front row, and I had this Uncle Sam hat on, and Mick Jagger wanted to wear it, and he wore my hat during the concert and everything. But that afterwards, that I felt a big letdown, and when I don't think I had the wherewithal to examine that letdown, but I remembered it. I always remembered it. And I think that what it really came down to was that I was supposed to be a different person because Mick Jagger wore my hat. It was supposed to be some kind of a new level of consciousness as a result. When meanwhile I had reverted back. I was just having breakfast with somebody this morning. We were talking about it. I said, a lot of times what precipitates a midlife crisis, I believe, is that you keep thinking that somewhere down the road, there's something I'm looking for. When I get there, I'll have arrived. We want that sense of arrived. In a Christian terminology, you would say, this is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. I've arrived. And we keep thinking, well, if I get the Corvette, I'll have arrived. No. Well, if I just get promoted, I'll have arrived. No. And after about 20 years of chasing things and finding out that they're not delivering on this sense of having arrived, we begin to question if there's anything out there. And I believe that was one of the things that precipitated my whole life's quest, was this sense that I kept chasing things that were not delivering on the back end. So I finally came up through the help with Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey with this concept of that all of life longs for transformation. Every acorn's longing to be an oak. But there's three kinds of transformation. When a thirsty man drinks, he transforms his condition. When a poor man hits the lottery, he transforms his circumstances. But when Mr. Scrooge wakes up on Christmas morning, an utterly new man, he has experienced a transformation of being. And I finally realized that what I was looking for, what the monks are looking for, and I would actually argue all of us are at heart are looking for, is a change of heart, a transformation of being, to be utterly transformed. And in my definition of that is to be transformed from a selfish person into a selfless person. That deep down inside, we may think we want selfishness, but we really want selflessness. And that's the main thesis of my book. And that the more selfless you become, the more successful you will be in life.
And that is that how you make the transformation into business, or how does that flip over into business?
Absolutely. Again, we're using the term becoming. You will become successful. You don't learn success. You have to become successful. And anytime we're talking about a becoming process, philosophically, that is a transformation of being. We're going from a caterpillar into a butterfly. And absolutely, as I say, some real quick and dirty ways of saying it is every great salesman realizes the more he forgets about himself, forgets about his product, forgets about his commissions, forgets about his quota, and instead fanatically focuses on selflessly serving his customers' needs, the more sales he makes. So the sales become the byproduct. The success that other people seem to admire in that salesman is actually the byproduct of his selflessness. When entire corporations or nonprofits or schools or whatever selflessly focus on their customers, then the successful kinds of things that they're looking for, like profit, come along for the ride. And perhaps most importantly, when leaders realize that their job is not for them to become successful, but to make other people successful, if you want to be promoted, the fastest way to get promoted is to help other people get promoted. Mm-hmm. That's the quickest and most direct way to get promoted in any organization that's an authentic that's a halfway decent organization, is to get other people. So the job of leadership is not to make me successful. I shouldn't even want to become a leader so that I can be successful. The closer you accomplish saying, wow, I really would love to be promoted into a leadership role so that I can help other people be successful. The more you actually feel that way and act that way, the quicker you'll be promoted. So I have this one thing I end up saying at the end of one of my chapters: the less I worry about money, the more money I make.
And we may translate that for teachers, and the less I worry about test scores, the better my students perform.
Exactly. The test scores should be, as we say, with profit or with commissions or with promotions. They're what are called byproducts or trailing indicators. They're the byproducts or trailing indicators. I talk constantly in my book, aim past the target. We're all talking, when you play basketball, you aim for the back of the hoop. When you play golf, you aim for the back of the cup. In archery, you aim past the target. So you should be aiming for something bigger than test scores, and keep trying to get even bigger than that. Something even bigger than education. Would be maybe education. We usually think of as left brain types of things, but building body, mind, and spirit. Personal growth. Everything that's to keep trying to think of it as big as you possibly can, so that you aim past the target. In my article in Forbes, I write for Forbes on leadership, actually, and I wrote an article about personal development, and I said that Dostoevsky, speaking of education, when he was only 17 years old, he wrote to his brother, and he said, "Man is a mystery. If you spend your entire life trying to puzzle it out, do not say you've wasted your time. I occupy myself with that mystery because I want to be a man." So he proclaims at 17, not that I want to be a writer. I want to be a man by means of pondering the mysteries of life. And then his writing ends up becoming a methodology for his personal growth, not the other way around. And I think it was absolutely critical that he had his priorities straight that allowed him. He's one of my favorite authors, so I'm exuberant here. That allows somebody like Dostoevsky to become such a great. And I said in that article that the hardest question I consistently get on a lot of podcasts, I've done dozens of these, Pete, is, what do you do for personal development? I said, my whole life, only thing I care about is personal development. I'm not doing personal development so I can be a better teacher. I do teaching so I can be a better person.
Mm.
My teaching is a personal development methodology to help me be a better person. So that the better person I am, the better teacher I am, and the better teacher I am, the better the kids are going to learn, and so it all works out that way.
It's kind of a concept that, I've been promoting, which is, at a certain level, personal development and professional development are exactly the same thing.
And at the best level, it's your life. It's just your life.
Yep.
Your life is, that should be the centerpiece of your life. It's not something you go over here into a corner and do so you can come back here with this token that you got for your personal development. Now you're going to trade it in for a raise.
Right. So, Augie, one of the things that it just rose up in me as you were talking about, shooting past the target. Schools are so focused right now, and teachers are being held accountable for how well their students do on many tests. And, this whole accountability, your job, your career, all relies on how well your students are doing. So what happens is people are doubling down and narrowing their focus rather than broadening it. And, what comes up for a lot of these people, and I'm sure a question that my listeners are thinking about right now is, how do I deal with this fear that I have that by taking my focus off just, like drilling down to make sure they're successful, but loosening a little bit and opening up and shooting past the target. How, that's a fearful thing. How do I deal with that?
Well, there's no quick and dirty answer to dealing with any of your fears. You just have to absolutely take them on head on. I have a chapter in my book, in Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, about faith and how the monks just put one foot in front of the other and don't, and even when they lost their whole, they were, people don't know this, but monks don't get money from the Vatican, doesn't send them a check every month. They have to make their own money. They make their own living. They had a chicken business down there, and their chicken business was put out of business, but they did the right thing and kept moving forward, regardless of the fact that they lost their whole business and had to go into a completely different direction, start a mushroom business, etc. I mean, you have to. You have to do in your life the right thing every day of your life, what you think is the right thing, and then let the consequences fall where they may. And frankly, if you find yourself in a situation where you're better to light a candle than to, sometimes you have to face the fact that the constraints that are built into the job that you have are just so bad that you do have to leave that job. I don't like to say that, but sometimes you just can't change the circumstances that you're dealing with.
Yeah, doing the right thing doesn't always mean that you're going to live happily ever after in the short run.
In the short run, especially.
Right.
Exactly. In the long run, I would almost guarantee it.
Yep.
But in the short run, and this is what separates the quote unquote men from the boys, is that you have to be willing to pay the price. There's a price that comes from living authentically. And as interestingly enough, as the years go by and you look back, you wouldn't even want to be spared those prices you paid. That's what makes the story good. That's what makes you. That's what as they say, pressure doesn't just build character; it reveals character.